all that's in the mix, but the remarkable thing about our sector is the way in which people keep hope alive every day for the people and places you're here to serve. We are nothing without our grant holders. We can move money in Scotland, but the work you do, the patient work you do, often against the odds, day in, day out, is the secret to our success and your impact. So thank you. We are about to have some very short introductions around your table so you know who you're sitting with. And just before we do that, I want to ask our colleague Vincent from Barracks to do the air traffic control housekeeping, so we're all safe and comfortable here today. Thank you very much.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Barracks. We don't have any fire drills planned for today, so should the alarm go off, please take it as an actual event. This room has 2 fire exits. The door that everybody came in leads to the stairs. At the bottom of the stairs on the left hand side is the fire exit. We'll take you on to the rear of the building, and the muster point is along the cinema seating. Behind me is the secondary exit. The stairs take you down to the front of the building, but again, the muster point will be along the cinema seating. Should you see anything as you walk about the building, just please break a red fire point. That will set the alarm off and alert everybody that there is indeed something wrong. If anybody has trouble walking, or indeed any wheelchair users here today, the top of the stairs are a safety cell. People will be safe there for at least 60 minutes. By then, hopefully the brigade will be here. They will help them get out of the building. In an emergency, we do have chair slides, so we're trained to use them, and we can get them out of the building. We are also first aiders, and our first aid box is on site, as well as a defib. They're downstairs behind reception. The building is a no smoking site. If there's a small break in the middle, should anybody want a cigarette break, there is a cigarette bin by the new cinema. The only other thing to mention really is the parking. We have a camera on site that will take your number plate, and if you're not registered to be here, you will be fined. The exception being blue badge holders, but as I said, the camera takes a picture of your number plate, not your blue badge. So please inform staff at reception, and we'll put you on the system and ensure you won't get a fine. Have a lovely day.
Vincent, thank you. So, folks, we don't do this every day, do we? Let's really take this opportunity to speak, listen, frame for solutions. Let's take just under 10 minutes for some speed dating intros around your table. folks, sorry to interrupt the conversations. I know we're just getting started, but we're keen to stick to time, and there will be time to complete your intros if you haven't already. I would like to now invite the Cabinet Secretary, Sharon, to say a few words before we hear from the First Minister.
Thanks very much, Jim, for that introduction, and it's a real pleasure to be back at the barracks again. And thank you to the Robertson Trust for inviting the First Minister and I along to the event today. I know I speak for the First Minister to say that we are really pleased and delighted to be able to be in the room today with so many people, to be able to hear from you directly about your experiences, your work and the impact that you are having in communities right across Scotland. We know from all the visits that we do as ministers about the important role that the third sector and organisations like yourselves play in the day-to-day lives of people in our country. And hearing just from my table as we were doing the introductions about the real difference we make to people at some of the most difficult times in their life, and that's such an important aspect of the work that many people here will do. And we also know, of course, the importance of that work in tackling and eradicating child poverty. Now, you'll hear from the First Minister about our mission and our determination to continue that drive and that work, because as a government, we will continue to do all that we can with the powers that we have, leaving no stone unturned to deliver the change that we all know is needed. And we'll hear more from the First Minister on that very soon. But we're also very aware of the scale of the challenge that we have in front of us. The First Minister's talked about that national mission before, and also that moral imperative that we have. Now, that requires collaboration, it requires collective effort from governments at all levels and with the third sector. And it's fundamental that we work together to deliver that fundamental change that we know our communities need and that we are here to deliver. Now, last week, the First Minister spoke in Parliament in a debate on child poverty. He spoke about that need to redouble our efforts towards the eradication of child poverty, to tackling the roots of poverty, as well as helping people in the immediate. And we also know about the importance of that work collaboratively to help that happen. So we very much hope that getting together today, very still at the start of this new year, is a real opportunity for us to engage with yourselves, with your organisations, the people that you help day in, day out, to consider how we can constructively work together on that national mission. So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to invite the First Minister up to say a few words for you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shirley-Ann, and I'm enormously grateful to the Robertson Trust. We're going to have to do something with that microphone first. I'm very grateful to the Robertson Trust, to Morag McNeill and to Jim McCormick. We're going to have to do something with that microphone. So it's right. I'm going to. I don't think I need that for the room, but the broadcasters are getting the feed right. Okay, so we're going to do it with my voice. Here goes. Can you hear me all right at the back? Is that okay? Right. Okay. Well, I'm enormously grateful to the Robertson Trust for enabling Shirley-Ann and I to be here today, to Morag McNeill and to Jim McCormick, and to all of you for being part of the conversation that I'm keen to have this morning. I very much welcome the opportunity to discuss a topic of such importance to me personally with a gathering of partners who are so similarly invested in achieving the best outcome for Scotland that we possibly can do. I'm here to talk, but I'm also here to listen. I've had the opportunity at the table a moment ago to hear from some of our colleagues, and I look forward to the participation that I have later on today in the roundtable discussions about how we address the challenges that we all face in society today. You are the experts. You are the people with direct experience, in many cases lived experience, of the reality of poverty in our land. And I want you to be honest and candid with me. I can set a direction, I can give an impetus and a priority to all of these issues within government, but you will know exactly what works. You will have a clear sense of the real-world complexities. You'll have a clearer line of sight on the barriers and the shortcomings in the system and the holes in the safety net that children and families will often fall through. I've said that the eradication of child poverty is my government's #1 priority, and I want it also to become our nation's #1 goal. Why is this so important to me? I'm going to answer that question in 3 ways, starting with what is for me the essential underlying principle. I cut my political teeth in the 1980s, and I remember vividly Margaret Thatcher's assertion that there is no such thing as society. This was more than a throwaway phrase. It captured an ideology, what I consider to be a hugely damaging ideology. It's a view of the world that sees the individual as the fundamental unit. What matters most with that worldview is that I'm all right, and maybe by extension, those closest to me are all right. Other people, the planet, future generations, they are of significantly less, and for some who hold this view, of no importance. My belief is that we exist not as atomised individuals, but as people shaped and defined by our relationships. Relationship is the fundamental building block of our society. In my view, there is nothing, therefore, without society, nothing without community and connection. We thrive, we flourish, we are most ourselves, not when we stand alone, but when we stand with others. On this worldview, we are genuinely all in it together. If one child in our community hurts, we all hurt. If one child struggles, we all struggle. That's the principle. But there is also what poverty means in practice for each child, each family, and for our land. I care so much about eradicating child poverty because I believe it is wrong to condemn any child to a life of disadvantage simply because of the economic circumstances into which they were born. There is a moral imperative. Helping our most disadvantaged children is the right thing to do, but there is also an economic and a social imperative. Scotland will never reach its full potential unless and until each and every one of us is able to flourish. I think of all the lost potential because poverty leads to lower achievement at school. I think of the resources that are needed to repair the damage caused when a child is brought up hungry or lives in a damp or a draughty home. Too much has already been lost. Too much damage has already been done. Too many people and communities left behind. My final reason for choosing the eradication of child poverty as my government's most important priority is what it says about the sort of country that Scotland can become. Not only the Scotland that is, but the Scotland that is possible. People often say that the eradication of child poverty is an impossibility. That is true if Scotland remains the same as it is today, but my ambition, and looking around this room, I think it's also our ambition, is for a very different Scotland. I'd like you to imagine for a moment a Scotland where no child lives in poverty. What does this Scotland look like? It's a wealthier Scotland. We've made the most of our vast renewable energy wealth to bring new jobs and opportunities across our land. There are clear and direct benefits for the people of Scotland. A restored manufacturing base, a green reindustrialisation of our land, lower household fuel bills, lower energy costs for industry, fuelling inward investment and business growth, more jobs, better jobs, higher wages, ongoing opportunities to learn and develop new skills, growing Scottish-owned companies, a spirit of entrepreneurialism, ambition and hope, no ceiling, and what any child can achieve. But wealth on its own is not enough. It's a fairer Scotland too, with our nation's wealth shared more equally amongst us. The gap between the highest and the lowest incomes reduced, less wealth inequality, so all of our citizens have assets, pensions, savings, and if they wish, a home that they own. The wealth of all increasing, but the wealth of those with least growing the fastest. Imagine it. Among the wealthiest countries in the world, the 5 with the lowest rates of child poverty are Denmark, with a population of 6 million, Slovenia, population 2.1 million, Finland, population 5.6 million, the Czech Republic, 10.5 million, Norway, population 5.5 million. These countries are amongst the most equal in the world. So why not therefore Scotland, with a population of 5.4 million? It's a Scotland with responsive, flexible, person-centred public services, able to respond to families in crisis, able to support those knocked off course, whether by ill health, ill fortune, or by personal choices. It's a Scotland with strong, vibrant communities and a system of lifelong education that encourages and enables all of us to reach our full potential. Now, how do we build this Scotland? I won't pretend it's easy, but I will also never argue that it's beyond the limits of what is possible for our nation, especially if we ensure that more of the decisions about Scotland are taken by and for the people of Scotland. If we want it, if we prioritise it, if we make it our goal, then together we can make real progress towards achieving it. I believe with every fibre of my being that the more decisions we take here in Scotland, the better for Scotland, because no one cares more about this country than the people who live here. We've got what it takes to both imagine and to create a better Scotland. Of that, I have no doubt, because there is nothing wrong with Scotland that can't be fixed with what is right with Scotland. Now, I've given you some sense of why eradicating child poverty is so important to me, and in the remainder of my remarks, I want to set out some of the actions my government is taking and what more we hope to achieve so we can continue to make progress towards our goal. The first is the choices that we've made in our budget, a budget that I am increasingly hopeful will receive the backing of the Scottish Parliament. When it comes to child poverty, the cornerstone of our approach is investment in more dignified and generous social security support. A range of family benefits makes a difference straight away by putting money directly into people's pockets, helping people with the day-to-day essentials and the cost of living. That includes the Scottish Child Payment, which this coming year is expected to support around 330,000 children, financial support for families which is unparalleled across the United Kingdom. The budget also includes increased investment in affordable housing, and I'd be keen to hear from you today about how we can make sure this extra investment is most effectively targeted to support the families in greatest need in our society. And of course, it includes the resources that we need to build the systems that will allow us to effectively remove the two-child cap for claimants in Scotland. Now, I can offer you 2 guarantees on this question today. My first guarantee is that if we are able to safely get the systems up and running in this coming year, the first payments will be made in this coming year, helping to lift thousands more children out of poverty. My second guarantee is that if the United Kingdom government does the right thing and abolishes the two-child cap across the United Kingdom, the resources that we've committed to this policy will continue to be used on measures to eradicate child poverty in Scotland. The second principal strand of our approach is the action we're taking to create more person-centred, family-centred public services. Child poverty is a deeply entrenched and systemic problem. There are no easy solutions. It's a societal challenge that will not be addressed with simply more of the same. I favour long-term, sustainable solutions over quick fixes. I favour an approach in which the Scottish Government works side by side with local government, with organisations and with local communities. And I favour innovation from the ground up. There are so many examples of outstanding practice happening across Scotland, and many of you will be responsible for many of these examples. There are so many groundbreaking advancements springing up, sometimes brought on by nothing more than necessity or a bright idea. We need to identify those innovations, understand what makes them successful, and seek to replicate them where possible across the country. For the last 2 years, we've worked intensively with 3 local authorities to test new ways of tackling child poverty, working in collaboration with them and, crucially, with third sector partners to provide locally based wraparound support to families. We're now expanding this approach to 5 more areas across Scotland as part of our Fairer Futures Partnership programme. And through this year's budget, we are doubling the money available to develop and to support this work. In this way, my government is seeking to create the conditions for innovation and change that best meet the needs of our communities. Change that ensures families receive the right support at the right time and for as long as they need that support. The third strand of our approach is through education. Alongside the challenges we face as a country, I want to acknowledge also where clear progress has been made. There are many initiatives that the SNP government has introduced since 2007, and the one that I'm most proud of is the expansion of early learning and childcare provision. It includes 1,140 hours of ELC for all 3 and 4-year-olds, regardless of their parents' working status, and also for thousands of 2-year-olds from some of our most disadvantaged communities. Our early adopter communities, now in 6 parts of the country, are enabling us to offer childcare support, including wraparound care, before or after school, specifically designed to help tackle child poverty by supporting parents in work or parents to get into work. Pupil equity funding, paid direct to head teachers, enables them to direct resources in response to the specific needs and challenges within their school community, helping to reduce the poverty-related attainment gap. But there is much more that I would like to do. That includes working with our local government partners to ensure that over the next 5 years, we take forward a relentless focus on ensuring that young people are enabled to overcome the barriers created by poverty through the positive impact of the education system in Scotland. I want children in our most disadvantaged communities to have the same opportunities, after-school clubs, personal tuition, smaller class sizes, that are enjoyed by pupils in our most advantaged communities. We have only to look at the Big Noise, which started as a pilot here in Stirling and Raploch, to make music more accessible to young people, to see what such opportunities can do to transform lives. As a nation, I want us to think big and to act bold about our future. Put bluntly, nobody else is going to fix Scotland's deep-seated challenges but us. As First Minister, I'm committed to putting in the hard yards, to bringing people together and identifying lasting solutions. Yes, in many cases, these involve investment, but it's also about ensuring support is joined up and therefore families need that support to be available, working harder but also smarter. So my appeal to you all today is to help me in that journey. I said earlier, you are the experts. You are close to the problem of child poverty. I want to work with you to deliver the solutions to the challenge of child poverty in Scotland. To be successful, we need to bring together national and local government, public authorities, third sector organisations, charities and philanthropic interests to create a coalition with a national purpose to eradicate child poverty in Scotland. If we all work collaboratively, if we all focus on how the money that is available can have the maximum impact, if we all identify what works, and if we all make that happen relentlessly across Scotland, I believe we have the potential to make a real and radical difference to the lives of children in Scotland. All of us care about Scotland's future, and that's why I want people in Scotland to see tackling child poverty as everybody's business, because there is no greater long-term investment we can make in our future and our success as a nation. So I invite you to work with me and my government to change the lives of so many children and families in Scotland for the better, and we can do that by creating that coalition determined to end child poverty in Scotland. Thank you very much. Now, we have some time for some questions, and obviously I'll be here for conversation later on in the morning. So what I'm going to do first of all is take a few questions from members of the audience who are here today, and then I'll take a few questions from the broadcasters that are here as well, and then we'll have a short break. So I'll very happy to take some questions from members of the audience who are here. So I saw that gentleman over there first, so we'll go there first.
Thank you very much, sir. I listened with glee as you spoke to me in my language when you talked about society. Where I come from in Zimbabwe, we call that Ubuntu, where my being is validated by my interaction with others. And that includes being acknowledged with what you bring to the table. You also spoke about child poverty and ending it, which I believe is a holistic, needs a holistic approach, including challenging the whole family. So my question is, what is your commitment to working with diverse ethnic communities in terms of what they bring to the table and changing the narrative around people who come here to grab and take things instead of showcasing what they bring to the table in order to be validated as members of the community?
Thank you. Thank you. It's a very important question, and where I want to start is by acknowledging the importance of the point at the heart of your question, which is positively recognising what people bring to the table. And Scotland is a very diverse country today. We have been blessed by the range of people who have come to live in our country and to make a contribution to our country. So I want to make sure that everybody that chooses to live in Scotland is able to make a contribution to our country and feels valued in the process, because that's how you create an inclusive and cohesive society, and a society that's best able to meet the needs of every citizen within the country. So when it comes to providing support in the work to assist families, in the work to eradicate child poverty, that must be available to everybody. That must be available to all families, whatever their background, because those families are part of our country and they must feel welcomed and supported, and we must put in place the mechanisms and the measures to assist them to realise their potential. So I acknowledge that for members of ethnic minorities, sometimes that support might need to be designed in a way that better meets their needs than it will for other individuals. And that's the right thing to do, so that we make sure our approaches are successful and effective. So part of my approach in government is to make sure that every family is able to have support regardless of where they have come from, that we make it very clear, and you should hear it loud and clear from me, that I welcome people who've chosen to come to live in Scotland and to make their contribution to our country, and that we've got to make sure that the support is configured in a way that best meets the needs of those individuals in those circumstances. Thank you for that. Okay. Can I take another question, please? Yes, over here. This is a microphone coming through.
Thank you, First Minister. I took my time and listened to every single word you said. It makes very sense in terms of the approach you put through. But first of all, I may have this opportunity to recognize the people I call the angels, which is the Robertson Trust. This Robertson Trust, as funders, to be honest with you, they are the people that genuinely provide the comfort that every people mentioned today, the poverty, child poverty, and people suffering trauma. These are the people directly showcasing that comfort that they need. And I do believe that the politicians, yes, will speak. The razzmatazz, the language they provide is a suited language, but how practically that goes into the system is what I don't know. Yeah, we talked about poverty eradication. That has been talked over and over again. And 20 years ago in Scotland, the face of Scotland is not like this. But today, Scotland is more diverse. And a contemporary society is made by man. So we do believe that the politicians as humans have the responsibility and what it takes to actually address the issue of child poverty from the grassroots. So child poverty is politically made or human made, and I do believe that if we follow the right directions, that can be mitigated. Though it's a global growing problem, so it's not something that can eradicate in the street. But obviously, if there's a system put in place, that system will be able to answer those questions. So my question to you is: yes, you've talked about this eradication. You made mention of budget you want to put through, but I didn't see through your budget how that addressed the issue of child poverty. Rather than what your budget was talking about is where you intend to invest the budget that will create employability work, which is okay. But then again, the families that are suffering this, we do understand from ethnic minority background, which I represent, most of the trauma and most of the poverty that's suffered by these people are actually politically and institutionally made. So, and I think you must have an answer to that.
Yeah, okay. I assure you I do. Let me start off with your comments about the Robertson Trust, because it does get to the heart of an important point that I want to make today, that government is able to do a lot in this area to eradicate child poverty, and we will do the most that we possibly can do. But there is also a role for other organisations like the Robertson Trust as a funder, but then also the many organisations who are supported and funded by the Robertson Trust who are here today to contribute towards that national effort. But I don't want that to be heard as me saying, you know, you've got to do your bit to contribute to this effort. I'm here to listen to what will make a difference in how we go about our work in trying to tackle child poverty, that will work most effectively listening to people here who are representatives of the grassroots projects that are making a difference in people's lives. So just one of the conversations I had at the table just before we started, we were talking about the work that goes on in one part of our capital city, where there's a project working very directly with families, a community-based project run by local people, which is supporting and assisting families to essentially lift them. Their title makes this point, to lift them out of poverty. But it's also working to create capacity within the community through taking over community facilities and community assets to make sure that community can get stronger as a consequence as well. Now, I see ventures like that as being absolutely critical to our mission. The blunter way of putting it is that the government will do as much as it can, but I don't believe government is able to do everything that is required. We must create the space for community organisations supported by the Robertson Trust and other philanthropic organisations to make the maximum impact they can as well. So it's a cumulative effort of all of us, between government, local authorities, third sector organisations and philanthropic organisations. Now, for the government's part, I don't see the eradication of child poverty as just a set of financial measures directly investing into families. There are important commitments there. The Scottish Child Payment, as I set out, puts money directly into families. We provide early learning and childcare for all 3- and 4-year-olds and for some 2-year-olds. There is increased investment in housing. There is support for employability. But crucially, what the budget also does is strengthen economic opportunity. So I want us to have higher value employment within Scotland, because one of the points that Morag McNeill made in her introduction was that a lot of people living a lot of children living in poverty today are living in households where their parents are working. So it's in-work poverty is a big challenge. So we need to increase the value of employment, which is why I want us to be successful in capturing the enormous renewable energy potential that we have, of making sure that our universities and colleges are working closely with communities and with organisations to strengthen business, and that businesses are able to create more substantial employment as a consequence. So the eradication of child poverty is not a compartmentalised part of the government's agenda. The government's economic agenda, designed to strengthen the performance of the economy and generate more wealth, is critical to help us in the child poverty agenda by creating the opportunities for individuals within our society. So that's the way I would see it working. But crucially, the point I would want to leave you with is the importance I attach to working with this sector to make sure we understand and hear all the contribution this sector can make to addressing this challenge. Right, we've got time for gentleman just in the front here.
Hi there. I'm from a charity based in Ardrossan, which is one of the most deprived areas in Scotland. It's all very well when you talk about, and Robertson Trust have been very good, they helped us with our core costs, and unlike other funders, they don't ask for that to be ongoing, they don't ask for that to be continuous. A lot of people ask for funding and say, we'll give you funding now. You have to ensure that actually you're self-sustainable in the future. When you look at people who are in an impoverished area, some it might be low income, it might be unemployment. That has a lot of knock-on effects. In our area, a lot of drug, alcohol abuse, and people who they get to the stage where life just isn't worth living. It's quite depressive. Talking about it is depressive. Imagine living it. You've got kids then who can't afford to actually go anywhere. They can't afford to go out. We provide well-being activities both for mental and physical well-being as well. When we charge for those activities, even if we only charge £2 a head, you'll get 5 kids turning up. That's about it. Maybe 10. If we make it free, you'll get 50 kids turning up. So we rely on funders to help us make it free. But if funders are actually saying it has to be self-sustainable at the end of it, you have to charge to then become self-sustainable. Robertson Trust won't do that, that's what makes them so good. But how do we then help the Scottish Government help us? Because without funding is very difficult. If they're only looking for self-sustainable, they can't get it. So we help the Scottish Government to get our name out there, and no doubt some other people in this room as well, to showcase what it is we do, the benefits we do, and how we're helping people. But how we can only do that if we offer those services free of charge. Yeah. So how can we showcase and get you to recognise us?
Well, let me say first of all that one of the reasons why I'm here is to listen carefully to what you've got to say to me, but also to express my appreciation for the significant work that is done by organisations that are represented here. And one of the privileges of my role as First Minister, and indeed it's been a privilege throughout my parliamentary career, has been to encounter really good and really interesting projects around the country that make a transformative difference in the lives of individuals. So you see that firsthand, and then you try your level best to put in place the arrangements to make sure that can be supported. So amongst some of the decisions, one of the things I was anxious to do in the budget that is currently being considered by Parliament was to make sure that, for example, local services could be better supported. So we've, a lot of organisations will depend on local authority financial support. So we've put in place a stronger settlement for local authorities. We are taking forward a number of steps to make funding more sustainable for third sector organisations, and I hope to be in a position to set out a bit more long-term certainty in the course of the period that lies ahead, because I recognise that's a big vulnerability for third sector organisations if you don't have that confidence. But the other thing we've got to do, and it's inherent in your question, is that we've got to think more broadly about some of these challenges. If your project, which will require, in the grand scheme of things, a very small amount of money, is able to support a young person onto a better pathway in their life, whereby they don't get into difficulty, hopelessness, and all the rest of it, that individual will be a contributor to our society and able to have a better life and to be a contributor to our society. So that's about changing life chances. And that's so important in the work that goes on in amongst all of these organisations, about changing life chances, so that in the long run the state is not having to spend as much as it currently does on dealing with the costs of failure, but actually can spend more on investing in the future. And that's the shift that I want to try to engineer for the benefit of people in Scotland. But crucially, recognising and supporting the work that organisations like yours brings forward is important as part of that journey. Thank you for that. Now, I think I'll take this question here, and we'll make that the last one before I take the broadcaster questions at the back.
Thank you, First Minister. Jacqueline Mann from the Full-Time Care Group. I fully welcome all of the plans that you've outlined this morning with regards to eradicating child poverty. What would be your advice when we look at the investments that we're making now and in the coming year in terms of eradicating child poverty, to ensure that that's not overridden by the conflicting policies coming from Westminster, particularly when we talk about national insurance? I know that certainly from our own perspective that is a huge worry for the coming year and will have an impact on the services that we are needing to provide for these families to help them to move and be lifted out of poverty.
Okay. Thanks, Jacqueline. I share your concerns about the impact of employer national insurance contribution increases, because they are going to be felt in a whole variety of different parts of society. I'm worried about them in this sector, because suddenly you've got an increase in costs and you don't automatically see an increase in revenue to meet those costs just to stand still. So there's a real threat there, and that's where I hope public authorities can be as sympathetic as possible to address that, to recognise that issue in funding settlements. I'm also really concerned about it in relation to business, because in business, again, we need there to be, to go back to the point I just made a moment ago about higher value employment, we need employers to be investing in employment. And if that becomes more expensive, when I was emerging in politics all those years ago, employers' national insurance contributions was referred to as a tax on jobs. So it wasn't a good idea to increase it, because it was a tax on jobs. It stops jobs being created. And we need more jobs to be created, and we need better value jobs to be created. And I just worry that this is a strategic mistake. So what I suppose the approach I all I can recognise about the challenge you put to me is the importance of public authorities trying to be as understanding and supportive as they can in addressing the financial implications of these issues in the budget settlements that are made for organisations, to enable organisations to be able to carry on the important work they're doing within the community. Because I fear there's going to be, and you can see the wider speculation about the economy just now, I fear there's going to be a significant and negative economic impact as a consequence of that decision. But we will do all we can to try to help within the scope and the responsibilities that we have available to us. But I can't promise you we'll be able to take away all of the impact of that. Okay, if we can move on to, I've got 3 questions to take from the broadcast media. First of all, can I come to Kirsten Campbell from the BBC? Well, two points there, Kirsten. The first is on the government's record in office, and I think we have to quite simply look at the events and the experiences with which the government has had to wrestle over that period. So if you go back since 2007, we've had the financial crash, we've had 14 years of austerity, we've had Brexit, we've had COVID, we've had the energy price spike and all that that's done to the pressures on public expenditure. Huge amounts of economic volatility that have put pressure on public expenditure and also put pressure on family living costs. And the government has tried on a number of different stages to mitigate that negative effect. So if I give you one example, the Scottish Child Payment is helping to keep around 330,000 children out of poverty in Scotland today, and that's only happening in Scotland. Now that's an investment that costs the government in excess of £450 million per year. For me, it's absolutely vital investment in supporting families to be able to deal with the consequences of poverty. So the commitment I'm giving today, Kirsten, is that the government will do absolutely everything it can to ensure that we are able to address the implications of poverty within the context we're dealing with, and to work towards eradicating child poverty, but to do so as part of a coalition of motivated organisations determined to achieve that objective. Then on your second point about the 2-child limit, the Scottish Government has provided the DWP with the data requirements that we have made. We did that before Christmas. That information was supplied to the United Kingdom Government, so we look forward to working with the UK Government in honouring the commitment the Prime Minister gave me on the 6th of December that the UK Government would work with us to lift the 2-child cap positively in response to the requests that we make. Can I come to Ewan Petrie now, please, from STV? Ewan.
Thank you, First Minister. Given the work still needing to be done on the integration of the 2-child benefits cap, can you rule out any possibility of that being introduced this year and possibly backdated to April, or is that still an option?
Well, there was some points raised earlier on, well, when was it? Last week, which suggested that we should be able to lift the 2-child cap by this coming April. Now, that just cannot be done, and anyone that suggests that is just not understanding the details that are required to be put in place to make sure there is a safe delivery of a social security programme of that nature and complexity. Now, the commitment I'm giving, we've said that we will put the systems in place to enable us to lift the 2-child cap in April of 2026. Now, I've said today, if we can do that earlier, we will do it earlier. But I have to be realistic with people about the steps that are necessary to make sure we can take that action safely and effectively so that we can deliver on the commitment that we've made to families. So my expectation is that it will be implemented in April 2026, but obviously we are addressing this with all of the urgency we can to make sure that we make as much progress as early as we possibly can do. And the final broadcast question is Alan Smith from Bauer.
Thanks, First Minister. Today, Tax Justice Scotland, an organisation made up of over 50 charities like the Child Poverty Action Group, Poverty Alliance, Oxfam, they say, while they welcome the ambition to end child poverty, they say Scotland is already rich enough to do it for now, for good. But what it needs is for your government to deliver fundamental fair tax reforms to share Scotland's wealth more equally. So is it realistic to believe that you can achieve your aims without those reforms and without putting taxes up for high earners?
Well, the government's already done that, of course, and that's the record that we've put in place. I know it often attracts a bit of controversy, but we judged that it was right to increase taxation for those on higher incomes to enable us to invest in some of the measures that we are taking. So the government has taken that. We've obviously got to be mindful of the wider context around about taxation in the decisions that we take. We've got to make sure, and we take the advice from the Scottish Fiscal Commission, about whether tax changes that we make will actually generate the increased tax revenues that might originally be expected to come from those tax changes. And we have to follow that advice with care, and I think, as some of you will have seen, some of the tax proposals that are discussed don't necessarily generate significantly more revenue than the might originally be expected. So what the government will take the steps that we can within the powers available to us to invest in measures to eradicate child poverty. But the crucial thing I want you to appreciate from what I've said today is that the government's budget is constructed in a way to use a whole variety of different investments across a whole range of different policy areas to support that objective of eradicating child poverty. It's not all just about what's been carried by the Scottish Child Payment. It's what we're doing in housing, in education, in the health service expenditure, in the wider investment in the economy to make sure that we are able to do all that we can to eradicate child poverty. Right, that's all the broadcast questions that I've got. I think we're going to have a short break just now, and I'm going to speak to some of the other journalists, and I look forward to our conversations around the table. But thank you very much indeed for your engagement this morning.
First Minister, thank you, and to your colleagues who asked those questions. We'll take a 10-minute break. Let's come back at our tables for 5:30. The First Minister's going to step out and take some media questions. He'll be returning before we, in the later part of the event, and we'll get set up for our
Right. 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 Right.